Welcome to Therapy Cable. I'm Dr. Ehsan Gharadjedaghi, founder of Therapy Cable. I'm also a clinical psychologist and a couples and sex therapist. I also focus on addiction and substance abuse treatment. And part of the today's professional series that I create, I invite professionals from the field to come and talk about what they do out there in the field. And I'm very honored to have a good friend of mine, Mr. Rickard Elmore, present, and I will tell you more about his credentials. I have a whole biography in front of me. I'm very happy to have him on board because you can learn a lot from his experience. So thank you for coming, Rickard.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let me tell you a little bit more about who Rickard is. Rickard Elmore is certified addiction specialist, interventionist, treatment support strategist, and a respected leader in the field of addiction treatment and recovery. In his over 20 years of experience, he has held positions in clinical care treatment planning, including head of staffing and intervention for leading treatment organizations, and he is currently serving on a board promoting the awareness of pharmaceutical overdoses in Orange County, California. His company pioneered recovery integration, a highly successful ongoing care model that assists individuals in achieving freedom from addiction for a lifetime. And I really love that about his work because it is right aligned with my philosophy of what I call a whole life re-engineering plan or program, because addiction really is a lifetime issue. It's not one of those things that can be dealt with or healed within 30, 60, 90 days. That's usually happening in treatment centers around the country. So we are very passionate about this. So without further ado, I would like to get into some questions in terms of, with all this amount of experience and expertise that you have, we would like to really open up a discussion for our viewers to understand the addiction phenomena out there, but more specifically, because we do have other videos about addiction, more specifically your specialty. I have never had an interventionist and treatment support specialist on the show and on Therapy Cable, so that's what I'm very excited about, because I think our viewers can learn a lot about what you do out there. Sure. Whom do you meet? Right. How do you help? What can people do for their loved ones? So if you could, first of all, give us a little bit more detailed information about who you are to our viewers, and then we get into it.
Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely.
You know, before we get started, there's going to be a lot of terminology that comes through, a lot of language that you might want to reflect back on, and I'd like to offer you the ability to get that information if you weren't able to catch it through the video by going you can just go to Google and type in my name in any one of these terms, and the information would come up so you could value it later. And my name is Rickard Elmore. That's spelled R-I-C-K-A-R-D Elmore, E-L-M-O-R-E. And you can type that into Google and any of the other terms that we speak about today, and you can see it there. So yeah, as an interventionist and a treatment support strategist, what I do basically is come in and help people value their individual situation to find the appropriate level of care. And for the last 20 years, I've been engaged in treatment protocols and processes that really have given me an opportunity to see the development of addiction treatment or mental health treatment where it is today. Interesting enough, we were just speaking earlier about how, recovery, we know it, but not a lot of people are aware of it, that it's a process, it's not an event. And when you're engaging people in a process, not in an event, you have to also support their education and their knowledge base into that. And this is where we come into treatment support planning or treatment support strategy. And as a treatment support strategist, what I like to take into consideration is all the variables that are included. What the resources are, what the family history is, what the interest of the person in quote-unquote clinical treatment or need is. Have they been to treatment before? A lot of our a lot of the people that we get calls from who have failed in treatment 3 or 4 or 5 times come to us asking, like, what do we do next? You know, what do you do after your loved one has failed treatment 3 or 4 or 5 times and are still in the behaviors or in the consumptions that you originally thought you took care of during their first treatment episode? What we've known for a long time, which is sort of confusing, and this is where I can say that as an interventionist, we really do plan for the long term. Anybody that thinks that an addiction or a mental health condition or a mental health illness, and there's a difference between those two, is going to get taken care of in 30 days is misleading you. You know, it's a process of behavioral adjustment. It's a process of biological measurement, of psychological measurement, of you know, living in a place of recovery. Is the person suffering from a disease that's never going to go away? Or have they had a trauma come up that they can work through, and are they going to be in total abstinence for the rest of their life? And all these different variables need to be valued by professionals that actually know what they're doing versus claiming that their personal experience should be the next person's experience.
Absolutely fantastic. I like the way you brought it around in terms of this distinction between what a professional and more expert-focused treatment looks like and what a personal, a layman's perspective is. And you said it very well. Addiction is not a 30-day problem. I think we should coin this term and put it out there out there in the world. So
teach it at least.
Teach
right?
it. Yeah. Addiction is not a 30-day problem. It's not a 15-day problem. It's a lifetime problem and lifelong problem. And it requires thorough assessment. It requires thorough treatment plan. And now that is more on the side of treating it, assessing it. What I would like to focus on with Rickard is how do interventionists work? Because you may be a family member of a loved one who is struggling with addiction. You may be an employer or a friend or a neighbor. So we would like to give you some awareness, understanding of how you can really use the services of an interventionist, where they are, how you can find them, how they can be effective in the whole process of getting your loved one to the right treatment team. So if you could, Rickard, please share with our viewers, like, what's the role of an interventionist specifically? How does it begin? Where does it end? And some of, and I will come up with other questions, but let's start with that. How does it begin and end?
Mm-hmm. So, as an interventionist myself, our relationship begins when you're trying to figure out what the best way to go about treatment is. And where it ends is when our services are no longer needed for you or your loved ones. And we work within those parameters. A lot of the times you think that, well, we know our loved one's going to go to treatment because we're going to tell them that they're going to go and they're going to accept it. And we get into the space where we want to offer them that opportunity, but we don't know what all the parameters are. For instance, how long is this treatment episode going to last? Where are they going to go when they come out of treatment? How much is the family going to be involved in the process? Does all the family members even need to be there? Which intervention technique are you going to use? Are you educated on the process of what the cost is? Do you know about the long-term results of planning ahead? And what we do as interventionists is we come support you and educate you in all of those processes. You know, as an interventionist, and what we first do is plan treatment support strategy. So you may not need me to come in and do a family intervention for you and your family to get your loved one to go into treatment. You may need to come in and be educated about all the parameters in which you might be able to employ yourself. Because our goals as interventionists is get you involved in the process so you know what you're doing, so you can move on the same way when your loved one goes into treatment, they're being taught how to learn about their disease or what their condition is and be able to take it out and apply it. And this is what an interventionist should be doing for the families as well.
Fantastic. So that's a great summary of what an interventionist does. I love the fact that you mentioned, it's not always necessary for, an interventionist to immediately jump in. Mm-hmm. So the education phase of it is huge. Basically, a family, or again, support persons around someone struggling with addiction can gain a lot of tools, basically awareness, tools, techniques, skills from an intervention. It's even prior to intervening, mm-hmm. or prior to him or her intervening, because so to say that the family is really intervening, or the support group is intervening for now, but from a more aware and skilled perspective. So then going forward with that, what would you recommend? Let's say some of your recommendations and suggestions for specific persons in the life of a person with addiction. What recommendations would you have for a parent, mm-hmm. and for a sibling, and for children for now?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great question, because each situation we really take it in individually. As far as a parent's concerned, is we really support you understanding what the process is, what your level of boundaries can be, and what the benefits of those boundaries could be, and whether or not you're going to be able to hold those boundaries all the time. We find that sometimes your loved one needs to have boundaries that causes them to totally take care of themselves without your financial support or giving them resources. But we always say, never stop having love and compassion for them. And always find a space to allow you to be treated the way you'd like to be treated, and not allow their behaviors to feed over onto where you are as a person. As a sibling, we can simply say that, again, all of this would be individual engagements, but we could say across the board that you do your best to support your family and support your sibling, but also take into account your own health and well-being, because most of the time your job is going to be to make sure you take care of yourself with still offering love and compassion for the person in need. And as a child of somebody that's suffering, that's a whole different dynamic, because children find themselves in a space where they feel like they have to be accountable to take care of their parent. And that's an unfortunate position to be in. And what I could say is that's better addressed by a clinician or a doctor or a psychologist or a psychiatrist that's better suited to look at that individually, because when it comes to that perspective, it's very hard for me to suggest anything that would be broad-stroked.
Fantastic. Thank you for those recommendations. I have more questions. If you bear with us for a minute, we will be right back after these announcements.
Hi, welcome to Adelante. This is Adelante Recovery, and my name is Yvette Kuglin, and I'm part of the staff.
Adelante Recovery Center has helped people in dual diagnosis for 5 years. We accept most PPO insurances and provide luxury accommodations and 24-hour support. To speak with an admissions counselor, call 1-888-242-4450.
A lot of time we don't even know what's wrong with us, and sometimes we need to get away to figure that out. So if you want to go for a little retreat out in Corona Del Mar, which is a confidential location, we're here to help. So we're only a phone call away. Thank you.
Welcome back to Therapy Cable. And today's professional, this segment is about interventionists, mm-hmm. in the field of addiction. And I have with me Rickard Elmore, who is a certified addiction specialist, interventionist, and treatment support specialist. And he's been in the field for over 20 years. He has a lot of experience with helping families, individuals. We were just talking about some recommendations he may have for family members, such as parents, siblings, and children of someone who is suffering with addiction, how to help. And he had great suggestions. And now we're going to continue with some other questions, such as what I would like to ask you, Rickard. How about non-family members? Sometimes, let's say it's an employer or employee, or a partner, business partner, or even a neighbor, let's say, and a caring friend, a close friend. These are at least 5 roles that come to my mind.
Sure.
If you could address those. Each one of them requires a little bit of a different approach, and I'm sure you have dealt with all of them. So if you would want to tell our viewers like some tips.
Sure. I mean, sometimes non-family members are our biggest advocate to help somebody get the right level of care. Sometimes a non-family member, the loved one that is in need of treatment, has really opened up to somebody that's a non-family member. And we might even get more information about them of how we can sort of engage them in the process to really take that next step. And non-family members usually know a lot more in depth of some of the details that are going on that help support us to be able to get them into a level of care that would be best suited for them, for sure.
Okay, and would there be specific recommendations you would, for instance, make to a partner, business partner, versus, let's say, a good friend or a neighbor?
Well, if it was a business partner, I think that the best suited thing is for them to engage in a process to really try to help this person get the right level of care needed for them, instead of sort of taking the stance that they don't want this to be a part of their business. We really get a lot of those calls.
Okay.
And we found that we've been able to help support and manage businesses themselves by helping the executives understand the exact process that's going on with this person. Because sometimes it's just an overload.
Yeah.
They're just having they're overwhelmed. They're the responsibilities that are on their shoulders, and them needing to stand up and be the person that they said they are. Sometimes they break.
Yeah.
And that's normal in society, not just addiction or mental health, just in society in general. Sometimes people become overwhelmed, and they should be best supported by getting an appropriate level of care.
Very good. Absolutely. I'd really like that aspect, especially with a business partner. How about a caring friend? What can a caring friend do to help?
The caring friend really needs to be taken into consideration to make sure that the person that is in need of help can value that person as a caring friend as well. Because sometimes a caring friend doesn't have the depth of the problem that you do, but they're sort of having some of the behaviors.
Yes.
So their best friend, let's say, we can't bring them in because they're using too. Or they're having those behaviors too. And even though it might be the catalyst to convince him, we see a lot of times it could be the opposite effect. Right? Or sometimes a caring friend is the only person in the world that they would listen to. And you got to be able to evaluate that situation to make the best decision for all parties involved.
Fantastic. These are very, very tangible and specific examples that I think will resonate with some of our viewers who are listening. And I would like to add some recommendation as well from a clinical perspective that I have seen over and over again with especially family members or any of these individuals that we mentioned who do care about a person in need, but they kind of go about it in the wrong way. And what we notice is this difference between good intentions and the right approach. No matter how much of a good intention and good heart we have and care we put in a relationship, that does not guarantee the right approach. It does not automatically lead to the right behavior. And what I mean by right is effective. If something that would ultimately work and help rather than damage. So some examples would be, let's say, a family member, a close family member, also, or again, like a partner or friend or employer, employee, etc., who really are kind of close with a person. Sometimes they get frustrated finally after having tried many different things, but their intention is good. So they decide to just kind of confront the person and kind of pin them to the wall and corner them and tell them to wake up, if you will. Well, that's not going to help. A good intention, wrong approach. That's one example. So, and then this is what I hear a lot of times, that family members struggle with, they come to therapy. I've worked with them where they are expressing this dire situation, this frustration that, I've put up with a lot of things. up until such and such time, but then I could no longer take it, so I kind of told them straightforward what's wrong with them, and that didn't help either. So ultimately, being complacent or enabling, being codependent doesn't help, and also simple confrontation and almost like getting into a yelling match, if you will, or argument or debate, that doesn't help either. So as a suggestion, what I would recommend for anybody who is probably in this situation, to maybe first of all take a different approach in terms of their mindset, and knowing that, as we talked about earlier, addiction is not a 30-day problem. Therefore, it's also not a one-day problem. Therefore, it's not also a momentary decision-making problem. If our mindset is the person just needs to wake up, that's the wrong mindset to have. You know, just make a decision to stop it. That's the wrong mindset to have. So let's change that mindset and paradigm, and understand that if you're a caring person, the best thing you can do is really understand addiction in a more professional way, in a better way, in a more effective, more expansive way. So gain better awareness and education, understanding about addiction itself. Some of the things you can do is read a book. You know, order a book, read about it, talk to professionals, not just friends, family, because everybody has their own personal opinions. Talk to a professional, maybe call a hotline, watch some videos in terms of what addiction is and how to help. Reach out to consultants, such as, for instance, again, Rickard, as an interventionist, he will be there to answer questions. And you can reach out to interventionists like Rickard in your community, in your area, and ask certain questions like, how do you believe I can help? What are some options that I have? You know, establish some connection first to understand the situation, and then also take the right approach to help your loved one to also gain awareness of what is really ailing them, so they understand the situation better. Once we have a better understanding, then we can take the appropriate measures. I love the fact that what you mentioned earlier when we were talking about the issue of addiction. You know, it's like we said, it's not a 30-day problem. And the example you gave was very interesting. Somebody who was drinking, and you told them about panicking. Mm-hmm. Right? Could you share that with our viewers, like what you said about panicking or not panicking?
Yeah, you know, what happens is, you know, that particular story was somebody who came to us for treatment strategy because their family been going through treatment for the last about 10 years, and their loved one been through, I think, 7 or 8 different treatment centers, and they were refusing to go. And I started to talk to the family about the response to their loved one's consumption. And they said, well, when our loved one drank, we got very upset and we really started reacting to her behavior. And I said, you know, it's interesting enough that we know she's drinking because this has been going on for you guys for years. I wonder what would happen if you backed up and you didn't respond to that situation with anxiety and intensity, and you gave her an opportunity to choose if she wanted to get help. And interesting enough, the mom said, Rickard, we've never even heard of that before. And I was just amazed. And what I'm amazed about is that they have not even heard of that before. So, you know, we come into some situations, and again, we say we come right into the middle of the movie. And we want to know that, you know, most of the time they'll say to me, like, we've done everything. Mm-hmm. And I say, I guarantee you haven't. Because I'm right here in front of you right now. Mm-hmm. And we can give you some tools to support you to move through this process and quit holding on to it.
Very good. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that. In other words, you know, stop panicking and, again, start doing the right thing, which is trying the effective approach, including raising your own awareness, learning about this problem, and helping your loved one also to first understand the problem. So without any further discussion, what I would like to end this segment on is your attention to the services that Rickard Elmore is providing. You can Google his name. It is displayed on the screen, as you can see, and you can go to his website. It's very easy to find. He has lots of information for you that he can share with you. Contact him, get in touch with him if you have someone in your family or neighborhood, or again, close circles that needs help. That's the first step to start with. Thank you very much for watching Therapy Cable and tuning in to Therapy Cable. We look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much, Rickard. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for
I
coming.
appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. And we'd love to continue our discussion on other segments.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right.